another objection, this one not so easily dealt with by Frankfurt. Just as it looks as if we can be alienated from above from our second-order desires, so it might seem, in the sense that we might have a higher-order desire not to be moved by a second-order desire like that, and identify with a higher-order desire. So it might seem like we can be alienated from below from our second-order desires. We can have inconsistent first and second-order desires, and yet identify with our first-order desire. An example that gets used to illustrate this kind of point is that of Huck Finn. The story, originally told by Mark Twain, it's been used in this context by a philosopher, contemporary philosopher by the name of Nomai Arpally, who works at Brown right now. And let's just sort of work with a slightly simplified version of Huck's story and a particular incident in Huck's story. So Huck is a young boy in the South in the 19th century who goes off on an escapade with an escaped slave by the name of Jim. And at a certain point in the story, Huck has a crisis of conscience because he's been brought up, remember, in this slave-holding society, and he's absorbed the morals of the slave-holding society, at least to the degree to which he thinks, gosh, what I'm doing here is deeply wrong. I mean, Jim is somebody's property, and I'm making off with him. It's like theft. The laws and the moral codes of the society in which I'm embedded are pretty clear on this point. And he feels like, gosh, I really should give Jim up. And yet he doesn't. Why doesn't he? Well, he has great compassion towards Jim. He likes him. He wants to do him well. But the compassion, which we can think of as a first-order desire to help Jim, is inconsistent with a second-order desire, a volition, to be the kind of person who isn't moved by soft first-order desires like that. So what happens? You have the first-order desire to help, the second-order desire not to be the kind of person who's moved by the desire to help Jim. What happens is the first-order desire wins. So in a way, Huck is like the unwilling addict from the last clip. The unwilling addict has inconsistent first and second-order desires. It's the first-order desire that wins. He injects himself. But you might think that there's a big difference between the unwilling addict and Huck. Whereas the unwilling addict clearly does not identify with his first-order desire, isn't blameworthy for doing what he does, you might think that Huck's action, helping Jim, is an expression of his true character. That it's Huck who's authoring this. And if he were to be moved by his second-order desire to be the kind of person who gives up a slave in situations like this, that would be the nasty 19th century Southern social mores playing around with him. So the idea is what Huck does is an expression of him and praiseworthy in virtue of being an expression of him. He is the author of the action to the extent that he's praiseworthy of having done it. Now it's not obvious that Frankfurt can accommodate this. It's not obvious that there's really any way that Frankfurt can say that Huck is praiseworthy of having done what he did. The best I suppose he could say is, no, he's not. You might be inclined to think that he is because you think it's a great action. And you think generally when people do good things in nasty social situations, all power to them. But in fact, Huck is, like the beasts, just being moved by sentiment beyond his control. That's a very ruthless thing to think in the context of the story. And so you might want to consider how to amend Frankfurt's theory so as to get the result that Huck is praiseworthy in virtue of saving Jim, helping Jim in a case like this.